Once you get to that ripping stance, that's where magic happens. And that's where you really unlock the board and you're still able to engage the full rail in the water without losing speed. The board will land behind the wave and you're not going to be dragged.
Hey everybody, welcome to another Surf session. My name is Sean Cassidy, and we are chatting with coaches and athletes to stoke our passion and help elevate our surfing skills. Today's guest is Tiago Silva, owner and head coach at Mauka Lodge, a surf retreat that he started in Portugal 15 years ago. Tiago shares his stoke and tips on paddling out through the Whitewater and getting into what he calls the ripping stance. If you're used to surfing in cold water like me, ditch the 5'4" wetsuit and put on some board shorts. We are heading to the desert. Welcome to the podcast. Super stoked that you're here with me today.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you for having me.
And you're calling in from
Abu Dhabi at the moment. Yeah.
So tell us about that. You've got a bunch of students or something that you're coaching there, I presume?
At the moment, just a private client, that invited me to come here as a coach to coach him on the Abu Dhabi surf wave or wave pool. Yeah. So we've been here for a couple of days and been doing a couple of sessions, normally in the morning. And it's actually...
Because it gets hot,
It gets hot. And in the morning, there's less wind, almost like everywhere in the world. And
even on the pool, that's crazy.
Even on the pool, yeah. The wind can affect the wave on the pool as well.
How are the tides?
Well, this place is really unreal. And the wave, especially for us coaches, gives us opportunity to really be precise, and let the clients and the clients to practice every tip we give, time and time again on the same wave, which is almost impossible in the ocean. Yeah.
Is that, can you go left or right, or what's the deal?
You can
on
go
that?
left or right, left and right. On one session, in general, you can surf 6 to 8 waves, and then half. So let's say 4 to the left, 4 to the right.
Yeah. And are you, as a coach, are you in the water with your students, or are you running along the side saying, "Hey,
so
open your shoulders"?
So you're using a walkie-talkie, yeah.
So it's in their ear.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And
no way.
Yeah. And also, I've been out of the water with my camera, just filming, so we can look at the footage after the session and just discuss some technical details. But yeah, for sure, it's really for everyone that can just afford to come here and do this experience. I totally recommend to come and try this wave pool thing, which is really incredible. How the technology evolved so much that we are now surfing in the middle of the desert. Yeah, this is
that's so wild. That's so wild. Have you mentioned you've been on one other wave pool in Germany, I think, like Munich, I think.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is that right?
It's a different technology. Yeah. It's also really good. There's more waves per session you can catch on that one.
Okay.
But in terms of like quality of the wave and also duration of the wave, I think this one here is really unbeatable. This one in Abu Dhabi, it's a longer wave and just even more perfect.
Crazy. Is it as long as Chicama?
No, that's unbeatable. That's unbeatable.
Yeah,
we've been in Chicama. We've been riding waves like up to close to 3 minutes, which is insane.
Oh my God.
Insane. Yeah.
Your legs must be burning by the end of that.
All the guests I bring there, I really recommend like working out for at least like 2 months before the trip, because it's really, really tiring. And not only the wave, but also the cadence. You catch waves because we have the boat that supports us and takes us back to the line.
I see.
So you don't have a lot of time to rest, in fact. So it's pretty intense.
But you don't have, like when it's your turn, you have to go.
No, you can always do, but you see those perfect waves. You see those perfect waves coming to you. You gotta go.
You gotta go. I know. So let's. So we met each other in, like we were saying, in Portugal a couple of Novembers ago, and I took a course, a camp with you at Mauka Lodge, just outside Lisbon in Ericeira. How did you get started with that surf camp, Mauka Lodge? What's the story on that? How long has it been going, and why did you even get into surf coaching?
So I've been surfing myself since I was like 13, 14. Yeah, I actually started with bodyboarding not with surfing. Yeah. And then when I was about 17 years old, I started surfing. After that, like around beginning of 2010, I tried paddleboarding for the first time. And I got hooked. Just being able to move around from peak to peak, a different perspective from surfing. Like you are standing, you can see everything around you. All of a sudden, I could see fishes under me, and I was just, wow, this is something else. And
this was surfing or just paddling around on a sup?
On a sup. Yeah. I started surfing, yeah, but when I start paddleboarding, then, yeah, for me it was like I really felt the connection with the sport. And as soon as I started catching my first waves on a paddleboard, yeah, I got hooked. And since then, like 90% of my time in the water is on a paddle surfboard. Yeah.
Interesting. I wonder, like, I just know sup surfing. That's what I came to. So I'm going to start learning to surf on a proper surfboard. But I'm always curious about people like yourself that started on a regular surfboard and you get into sup surfing. Why is it so interesting that you prefer, like, your 90% of the time on a stand-up paddleboard? What's the attraction there? Well, you can see the fishes.
Yeah, well, that's the one. The other one is really like your wave count is just higher, much higher. So you just catch much more waves, especially if there's like kind of a crowded spot, you just get advantage, Of course, you try not to take advantage too much because normally surfers don't like it so much, but, try to be respectful all the time. But your wave count just goes up significantly. Yeah. So I had more time on the wave, which actually helped me improve my own surfing because I spent more time on the wave. So even when I got back to surfing, after even a few months just sup surfing, my prone surfing was actually better because I had more wave time. So that's, another reason. And then you have, like, it's not just surfing, you have the paddling component as well to it, which I really like.
Yeah.
So I really like the paddling. I like getting into the wave paddling. This is really exciting for me. And it's an overall body workout as well, which is, you don't get it with surfing. Surfing is really focused on like upper body, while paddleboarding is just more overall, more core. You work like your balance more. It's just more interesting from a physiology perspective and just good for your body overall.
Man, every single one of those things you mentioned are the same reasons I love about it and probably what everybody does. The thing that I don't quite understand is the performance on the wave. Like, I assume if you're riding a shortboard that you can have more maneuverability on the wave than on a sup. Is that true?
That's true. But at the same time, you also use your paddle as a leverage point, which is also interesting. So you kind of surf it different. You cannot do turns as tight as on a surfboard. So your style needs to adapt as well a little bit. Heavier guys have like also an advantage on a sub surfboard compared to, slimmer guys. It can be more powerful. You can put more power into your surf as well. So two different sports, they share some things in common, but I think at the end of the day, it's more like a preference. You just have more fun. A bit like, mountain biking, you feel like, cycling on roads or downhill or.
But it's also interesting, like you and I and anybody that might listen to this, we're in love with stand-up paddleboard surfing. And half the time, I wonder, why doesn't everybody else do this?
Me too.
Because it's a full body workout. You can get more reps in and you can see the waves coming and all that. It's funny that it's just not as more popular, I guess.
I agree.
And just to stay on that, you mentioned, like, you hear this a lot about being able to catch more waves, more rides on a stand-up paddleboard. And personally, I think that's true on a beach break. Because you can see stuff coming in, like, because those peaks sometimes are kind of shifty. But I find if I'm sitting on a point with other surfers, I don't know, I don't want to take more than my share. But, talented surfers are getting all the reps they need, and it's no more or less than what I'm doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. At the end of the day, if you're an experienced surfer and you know where to position yourself, you know how to read the lineup, all this, you're going to have actually the same advantages. Have an even more advantage because you're actually, quite advanced. So, eventually you get more respect, because even if you're a really good paddle surfer, I guess that you never get the same respect as if you are, a good surfer in the lineup.
You got to earn it.
You got to earn it. But
anyways, yeah. So tell us more about the Mauka Lodge. So you said you started sup surfing, I think you said around 2010. So 15 years on the paddleboard. And somewhere along the line, you're like, I want to start sharing this love of this sport and teaching other people. How did that transpire?
So I was working at the gym. I was a personal trainer, but I always loved the outdoors, and my goal was really like to work mostly outdoors. And if I could do it with something related with the ocean, even better. Yeah. So I started doing sup surfing, and I thought, okay, why not, taking some certifications, becoming a coach. After that, this was like in the beginning of 2011. So roughly 1 year after I started sup surfing, I decided to start a sup camp. So this was something like back in the days, maybe there was like maybe 1 or 2 person. I think there was one in Costa Rica. I don't know any others. So, and then I decided to start that. It was really early, like, even a lot of people didn't know about the sport of stand-up paddleboarding. So I started a camp. I started giving some lessons, and I had just a few clients. Maybe sometimes per camp I had like 1 or 2 clients on the first year.
Slow build.
Very slow. My camps initially had like 3 days only, because the rest of the days I was working at
a real job.
Exactly. Yeah. And then Friday to Sunday I was running these camps. And I did that from 2011 until 2014. Yeah, like that. And then in 2015, I decided to open my own retreat, because before that, people or my guests were staying at different hotels in the area. But from 2015, I decided to open my own guest house and offer the full program, including accommodation and everything. And then we passed from 3 days camps to a full 6 days retreats, with guests, just coming to stay with us, sub-surf together as well. And most of the camps, and of course there's a lot of camps in Ericeira, our area, but these are surf camps more like for backpackers, also especially back in the days. And I wanted something different, because myself as a paddle surfer, I think I wouldn't fit as well in this kind of setup. So I would like to create a setup specifically for paddle surfers, when they can share stories, talk about equipment. And there was nothing like this. And that was the main reason I decided to create Mauka Lodge. And we've been running it since 2015 until today. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great operation you got. I mean, I had a lot of fun with that. And I think the model of hanging out together as a group of learning paddlers. And then the real bonus, I love those camps to get the video review together, and go through not just your own waves and what you're doing right or wrong, but to see what to look for in other people's riding is really a great learning experience as well,
For sure. You learn also, from others, for sure. And my program, I always wanted to bring more than surfing. It's more than surfing. Also, we share our culture, Portuguese traditions, take you to different restaurants, we like to share also that part, the culture part, which is not taking over the surfing part. It's just a complement. Yeah. And so it's basically a week of a lot of surf, coaching, video analysis, and then also dining together and just having fun, meeting people with the same same things. You share the same
passions and interests.
That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
And then you end up, meeting new people and making new friends, and
all over the world. That's the cool part.
And for me as a coach, being able to meet people from all parts of the world is also quite exciting, and what keeps me stoked to keep doing this for so many years.
That's very cool. So tell us about, you probably get, I'm guessing you get beginners and intermediates typically, and probably a lot of beginners, but what do you find are the things you're working on with your beginners? What are some key tips for people that are just starting to sup surf and getting comfortable out there in the water?
I find that equipment is something really important. A lot of people come to me with not the right equipment. Sometimes they have boards that are just too small for their skill level, or sometimes boards just too big. So finding that right board to use, it's quite important. A board that allows you to be stable enough, so that you can catch as many waves as possible, but not too big that also delays you from progressing and really feeling the board when you're surfing. Yeah. So I would say that board is a big one. Also, sometimes when we do beginners, we get some clients that come just from experience, just with inflatables back home. So this is something that, I always try to tell them, look, inflatable board is awesome for flat water, but if you're serious about, subsurfing, just, get rid of that inflatable board as soon as possible, because it's actually delaying you also from delaying your progress. Gives you a lot of bad habits. So yeah, avoid inflatable boards, try as soon as possible, and to jump on a rigid board. Some people have problems with this because they don't have a place to store a board, so inflatable is an option.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're, the reality of stand-up paddleboards, they're not cheap, It's not
Sure.
It's not like grabbing a regular surfboard or a longboard.
Yeah, but that also takes me to another point important with beginners. Like, if you're a beginner, I normally recommend not to buy a new board. Yeah. And when you buy a new board, you most probably, you're gonna
sell it.
Yeah, pretty soon. So you're going to upgrade your skill set really quick, and that board most probably will be just too much for you anyway. So get a used board. And nowadays, okay, if we were talking about 10 years ago, there was not a lot of secondhand boards in the market, but nowadays it's, I think, much easier to find a used secondhand subsurf board around that you can buy maybe for half price of a new one.
That's great advice. That's great advice, because yeah, you're totally right. Like, I've had boards that pretty quickly I'm like, man, this is too big.
Exactly.
Yeah, I need something. In that case, as you progress, generally you want to get smaller boards, but yeah.
And also something very common with beginners is like, they buy the board, they spend a lot of money on a new board, they buy all the wetsuits, everything, and then they finally remember, I also need a paddle. And they go to the store, they just buy the cheapest paddle possible. This is big mistake, okay? Because the paddle is such an important tool for your progress. And it's something that if you invest once, because even if you change board, you're going to keep your paddle.
Unless you break it. I've broken a couple.
But in general, a good paddle makes a big difference, like preventing injuries and just being more efficient. If you have a light paddle, ideally carbon paddle, your paddle stroke will be just more fluid, and that translates also to speed. And, as we know, more speed, more waves you will catch. And it will be less stressful for your shoulders, for your spine. So this is something beginners don't look at, and I totally recommend getting a proper paddle, proper carbon paddle if possible, and even before you get your board, ideally.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's such a game changer to have a nice light performance paddle in your hands. Do you think, or what are your thoughts on the size of the blade? And I don't have numbers in my head, but I feel like ideally I would like a little bit smaller blade than, I've got a really nice paddle, but I kind of feel like a smaller blade would help with cadence and speed. But what are your thoughts on
okay,
that?
So it depends a bit on your physical structure. Yeah, if you're really big guy, strong, maybe you can take and use a bigger blade. Yeah. Normally between like 80 and 90 square centimeters will be something like a bigger guy, stronger paddler could use. But for most people in general, I think something around 8, 7.5 is more than enough, because just like you said, you can use it for a high cadence instead of, overpower, which can actually, again, hurt you, affect your joints. So I would say that a smaller blade, a softer shaft for subsurfing is what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. I was just thinking, I've seen you've got a nice YouTube channel with a few videos about your camps and also some technical tips on there. And I don't know, in the last number of months, you put out an interesting one of kicking your board when you're paddling out and the whitewater coming at you is too large to paddle over. You've got a nice video on kicking the board over. That's obviously more of an advanced technique, but maybe can you speak to just paddling out in general and tips that you share with your students on that? And maybe your students have already figured that out. I don't know, but I find it to be a really fun part of paddle surfing is just to keep your balance and get over the whitewater as you're paddling out. I mean, it's fun up until a point, right? Like once it gets to a size and the frequency of waves coming at you are such that it's never ending, then it gets not so fun. But yeah, what are your tips for paddling out first, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about kicking the board over.
Yeah, paddling, of course, you always want to try to, depending on where you're surfing, you always want to try to find a channel to get out. Yeah, to get in, actually. Not always is possible to find it, especially if you're surfing like a beach break and if you're surfing short period as well. But ideally, you want to look for that. That makes it much easier. And then, of course, you have to be ready to, dive under the waves if the wave is breaking. You have to be able to just, jump to the side of the board and going under the waves to pass it in case the waves are too big. On your knees is also a possibility as well, right? But the most important thing is, imagine if you have a wave coming against you, you want to make sure you get enough speed to overcome that wave. So I see sometimes some beginner paddlers, they just freeze. Yeah, so the wave is coming towards them and they're paddling, and then all of a sudden they freeze and then they get smashed, right? So I like to give the example of pole jumping, the sport.
Okay.
Yeah. So the guys are running. They place they plant the pole, and then they pull themselves over. Yeah. So we're supposed to do a little bit the same with the paddle. So you want to not run, but you want to paddle quick. Make sure you are completely perpendicular to the wave, and just before the white water gets close to your surfboard subboard nose, then you want to step back and place that paddle in the water and pull yourself over the white water. So that's where flat water training can be quite handy, because all these things you can practice on flat water. So moving your back foot, putting weight over your back foot and lifting the nose. All these things can be practiced in flat water. So before I take beginners to conditions like this, we always practice the drills first in flat water. So the movement becomes kind of automatized, and the chances of, getting hit by your board.
Well, you're going to get hit by your board at some point. Let's just agree with that point. Yeah. No, I totally agree. Like, so as you're paddling out towards the breaking wave at you, you have some speed. You're just before you get hit, you still have some momentum, but you're stepping back to lift the nose and get up over the white water, ideally. And then I think it's really helpful to, again, plant your paddle on the backside of the wave and keep pulling yourself up over, right? Exactly. Yeah. And I'm finding, there's a couple things. Sometimes you can get it up over the white water, but sometimes you can pierce it through the wave, kind of kick that nose through.
Depends on the size and volume of board you have. Like,
right.
if you have a smaller board, a lower volume, you can definitely do that. If you have like a big board, a wide nose,
it's going to get smashed.
Yeah. You're going to fall, most probably.
Yeah. So, and there becomes a point, okay, so say you're kicking the nose up and over. I mean, that works for a pretty good size wall of whitewater sometimes. But at some point, there's such a force coming, like it really plows into your legs. Hey, you just kind of get ejected sometimes, and it's at that kind of breaking point where I think again the more advanced surfers will start thinking about kicking that board over. So maybe talk about how that works and the advantages of that.
Yeah, just like you said, there is a wave size when it's just too big to just go over it, that you need to option A, dive away from your board and go under the wave, or kick the board over the whitewater. Okay, if you just dive away from your board and under the wave, what is happening is that the wave is going to push that board back to the beach and you're going to be dragged by the wave. Okay, the advantages of kicking it over the whitewater is that the board will land behind the wave and you're not going to be dragged. You're going to fall on the whitewater, but because there's so much water moving and air actually in between, that's why you have this whitewater, is the mix of
aeration. Yeah,
exactly. You never go too deep under the wave. You always kind of stay a little bit on the surface, let's say, or closer to the surface. So this is the advantage. So also when you get out of the water, you come up finally, your board, if you use the technique correctly, your board will be sitting just next to you. So you're not dragged. You don't have to pull the board back to you. Your board will be just right next to you. It's not a technique for beginners, but beginners can practice it in, let's say, sometimes we put beginners practicing this, or kind of intermediate subsurfers practicing it in, let's say, between knee to hip high waves. Yeah, broken waves. So this is kind of the best conditions to start practicing this technique.
And even it's another thing that you could practice on flat water too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to get used to walking to the back, and really you're planting basically on the foot pad back there, right? And falling backwards and kicking it forwards as you go. But it can be tricky. I'm no expert at it. I'm working on it. On a windy day, it can be quite interesting.
That's one of the reasons I did that video. I tried to really play it like in slow motion so that you can see what happens to your feet, how you should be walking on the board, the moment you should be kicking the board. Okay. So
it's almost like you're sort of cross-stepping as you go back, it looks like. It takes practice, I think.
For sure. Yeah. But it's not as difficult as it looks. It looks it's not as dangerous as it looks. Yeah, really. I'm not saying it's not dangerous. There is some degree of danger there. But once you know like the technique and you practice enough, I'm telling you, it's quite safe. It's quite safe.
And the funny thing is, I mean, it looks like chaos when you see someone doing this, right? And what I worry about is other surfers in the water. Like if you want to get respect in the lineup, you need to show control of your board, right? Like that's basics. But in this technique we're talking about, super useful. Sometimes you have to do that. But to an outside eye, to a surfer looking at you, they're like, what the hell's going on there? You know?
Yeah, but imagine you have a big wave coming in front of you, broken wave, yeah? And you have a surfer behind you.
100%.
And if you dive, instead of kicking the board over, you dive, but that board is going to be pushed against someone behind you. So in fact, it's actually a safer technique to use when you have people around, if you do it correctly.
No, I agree. And if you're in that situation, obviously you need that. You want to have that technique down before you're mixing it. you're in the mix with the other surfers, but yeah, totally agree. What about, so that's like paddling, getting out, but on the wave itself, what tips come to mind that you find that's someone that's comfortable surfing down the line? Maybe they're even doing cutbacks. What are some of a little bit more advanced tips that you find are useful to help with intermediate surfers, let's say?
Most intermediate subsurfers, they tend to surf their board too much in the middle of the board. Yeah. So even some good surfers, they are not used to surf the board from the back, where you actually are able to unlock the full potential of the board. So most intermediate subsurfers, they catch the wave and they keep the same stance right in the middle. So with the stance very close to their paddling stance instead of stepping back. And so we work a lot on this, making them comfortable walking on their board. Okay, walking forward, walking backwards. And it's incredible because a lot of the surfers that come to us, they're actually quite decent surfers, but they are not comfortable moving, and they don't even know actually how to step back correctly on a board. And this is something we work a lot with. And also recently, I think around 1 year ago, I did another video about that. It's actually one of the most popular videos now in our channel.
Okay. Yeah, I'll put links to these videos.
Yeah. It's about different substances. So normally we talk about 4 different stances. You have like the parallel stance, the staggered stance, the surfing stance, and finally we call it a ripping stance.
I was going to say ripping stance.
Yeah, it's the ripping stance. We just came up with this name for it.
I like it.
Because it's the last position is the position you surf with your back foot closer to the back fins, to the fins of the board. Yeah. And this will allow you to really control and maneuver the board to its max. So I think this is one of the things that most intermediate surfers get stuck with and should definitely be focusing on.
That's great advice. It's definitely something I'm continually working on. I need to work on more. And what would you say, like in that ripping stance, which to be honest, I don't get into it a lot, but I've had moments of feeling it, right? And maybe I'm doing it wrong, but you can be kind of stretched. That back foot can feel like you've got a fairly wide stance at that point because your front foot does need to be close to the center of the board, I think, to be kind of keep it connected to the water. Because I feel like there can be a danger of, and it's maybe misinterpreting what you're saying, having the foot towards the back doesn't necessarily having all your weight back there, right? Because you end up
correct.
It's just your nose goes way up and it starts flopping around. You're not really controlling it. So there's kind of a balance, right, of weight and drive on your front foot with the back foot far enough back to work with the fins. Have I got that right? Yeah.
So what happens is once you get to that ripping stance, what people tend in general to do is they keep a lot of their weight on the back foot, but on the ripping stance, you gotta be conscious of keeping more weight over your front foot because now the amount of pressure you needed to turn a board when you are standing on the center of the board, on the middle of the board, is going to completely change when you're moving a bit back to the back of the board. Yeah. So you need less pressure on your back foot to turn that board compared to if you were on the middle of the board. Okay. Mm-hmm. So the first thing that happens once you unlock that ripping stance is, and this is a normal thing to happen, is all of a sudden now you're pushing with your back foot too much, too hard. Yeah. And then that happens what you just mentioned. The nose kind of lifts up. But once you learn to leave and lean over your front foot while staying on that ripping stance, that's where magic happens. And that's where you really unlock the board and you're still able to engage the full rail in the water without losing speed. If that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I can see it. Like I'm pretty close. You know what I mean? Like I can see, I gotta unlock that. I gotta unlock that. So it's, I'm getting close, I think. How about dry land training? I know part of your camp, you often have people on surf skates.
I've been using skates for now many years to help me during my coaching sessions. I was actually just talking about that with my client here in Abu Dhabi. Using a surf skate can completely change your surfing and help you to improve much faster compared to not using the surf skate. However, you got to use it right, correctly. Okay. If you just pick up a surf skate and you just go skating and that's not going to translate to your surfing. So the technique I use and the method I use with our guests is basically focus on transferring the skills from land to the water. Okay. So it's a technique and the method that we use a lot of visualization. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just not like skating around and doing some turns around some pins. Okay. There's a purpose for this training. Did you do that training with me back in Portugal?
We did, yeah.
We did?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's all about knowing exactly and following the drills depending, on what you want to work. But it's all about visualizing what you're doing in the water and trying to transfer it on land. Okay. I have also a couple of videos about it. It's kind of difficult to talk about it or to explain it. You got to feel it.
Can you describe the concept of when you say visualization? Mm-hmm. What do you mean by that? What are you visualizing? Maybe talk kind of in higher levels there.
So normally you use some marks on the floor that simulates like the point where you should be doing your bottom turn, the point where you should be hitting the top of the wave. And part of the work is visualizing the wave itself. Yeah. When you start skating and using these points on the floor and visualizing it, like if you were dropping on the wave, now closer to the next pin, you need to visualize your compression and you need to start visualizing the face of the wave. When you are able to do this, that's when, things start really locking in. And my method is actually helping you through this process of, visualizing it and structuring the different pins on the floor in order to work on a specific skill. Can be your bottom turn, can be your top turn, can be a cutback, can be a simple thing like just, compressing more on your bottom turn, for example. This is something we do quite often. A lot of people don't compress enough on their bottom turn, right?
Totally.
So the thing is, on land, we can practice this as many times as we want. Yeah. And the idea is that your brain processes this information and this becomes a habit, and mechanically your body understands the movement. And once you're getting in the water, it just happens naturally, which if you don't have this practice and this kind of training, it can take you need like so many sessions in the water, eventually to get it. And this is like the biggest eye opener for guests coming to our lodge. Almost every camp, there's at least one person that gets a surf skate after coming to our camp. This is unbelievable. Yeah, we should actually be sponsored or something because we've been selling a lot of surf skates throughout the years.
Nice. I had picked one up 2 or 3 years before I joined you guys in Portugal. And I'd never been a skateboarder before. It was purely based on hearing about the benefits of surf skates through other just general surf coaches. The application is, I think, well known. And a lot of this stuff you can do on the flats. You're not necessarily using banking on. I mean, that's useful to do that, but you can do a lot on the flats.
That is the last stage of this surf skate method, really. Most of the things, like you said, we do it on flats, so it's pretty safe.
It seems like you recommend going out with intent. and setting out these cones or pins on the ground and kind of layering that visualization of the actual wave that you're on, like you're saying, gives you the chance to build up a repertoire in that situation such that when you're on the wave, you've got a little bit of a library or a backlog of experience.
And because we have the guests with us like for 6-7 days, we can compare like the first day they arrive and the last day when they leave. And when we see the video analysis, like from the first day and the last day, especially if we do the Surfskate training, it's sometimes unreal the progress they do in 1 week. So sometimes you can be stuck for years. I'm telling you, for years, you don't progress because, you don't have, tips that to really can help you to, to move to the next step. And just in 1 week, it's incredible how much you can improve when you have like the right tips.
It's interesting that you can see such dramatic progress through just a week of camp, because I mean, my thoughts are, I've only been to a couple of these types of retreats, learned a ton of information. But for me, I'm like taking ideas and nuggets and processing, and it's hard to apply all the stuff that you hear about during these retreats. To me, it feels like it's unrealistic to expect you're going to advance tremendously during the week. Like there's so much that you need to take back home with you and work on. You know what I mean? But
absolutely,
sounds like you see progress actually during the week for a lot of campers.
Yeah, of course, it depends. Everyone progresses differently, right? There's some people with more body awareness that just improve really quickly. Some other people that just, like you said, sometimes months later, they emailed us and Tiago, things are. I had this haha moment, this thing we discussed, during your camp. Now it's starting to make sense. So everyone and every person has his own time, to progress, and that's all right. It's exactly like this.
Yeah. Everyone learns differently too, right?
Exactly.
What can you think back on some of the aha moments that you've had as you've progressed in your own subsurfing journey?
Yeah, I'm not a very natural athlete. Like there's some people that just, get into a new sport and just get good at it really quick. I'm not one of those type of persons. It takes me time to, learn new skills. And so, I've been progressing throughout the years. It's not been my main focus, to be honest, because I was never much involved in competitions or stuff. Did a couple, but was not always my main focus. For me, surfing was a lot about, enjoying the moment, being present. And for me, surfing has always been like a therapy for me that I actually kind of put it together with my own work. Yeah. So for me, surfing is like my job, but at the same time is my therapy. So I don't feel that I have space, just to be super focused on progression for myself. I just enjoy being in the water, and progression comes as a consequence of being out there in the water. Of course, if I have opportunity, sometimes I get filmed and, I focus on something specific, but I'm not, super obsessed on about my own progression. I put all my energy. I put all my energy into my guests, and it's been here like this for a long time.
That's cool. Yeah, I think you kind of speak to all the many facets that come with this sport, this lifestyle. It's like a holistic, mind, body, spirit kind of a pursuit, right? And I think we can all focus on the things that resonate with us as individuals. But you're obviously a talented subsurfer, and you've been improving. You're saying basically over time, just all the water time, you've gotten better naturally. And yet it's interesting to hear that you don't maybe obsess over the learning process as much as some of your guests. Like I'm sure there's a lot of people that really are overthinking things, and maybe they start a podcast on subsurfing like I am just to learn more, But it's interesting. You have a different approach.
Yeah. Sub takes a lot of my time, personal time as well. And I knew from the beginning, if I want to do this for a long time, I need to manage it, my energy. I need to find my space. And my space is into giving my energy to my clients and enjoying it as a sport. I feel like, because I also did other sports when I was like younger, like competitively. And what happens is I start losing a bit the stoke, because, there's a point where you're just so focused on performance that it stops being fun. And this happened with me with the other sports. And I didn't want this to happen with me with supping or surfing, because it's something I want to be doing, for the rest of my life. So I was never really obsessed about, competing, or just happy with helping people getting better and enjoy my surf sessions, enjoy my waves, and of course do some progress. But it's not my main thing. That's why maybe I'm not a also professional athlete or competing, or maybe not, but I also start late. But
yeah, and I think that's super cool. Because so often if somebody makes a career out of a passion, they can get burnt out on it, and they kind of lose the focus of what interests them in the first place, why they're even doing it. So yeah. Nice. Appreciate that approach.
That's something important as well, like that I feel some guests don't do, or people, or paddle surfers in general. A lot of paddle surfers don't get out of their comfort zone. Well, sometimes coming to a camp is already getting out of your comfort zone. But I feel that most paddle surfers, they're just too comfortable on like surfing their local break, used to that same equipment, and they don't get, to different spots or try different, just different trips, different locations. So this is something important for intermediate surfers that eventually feel that they are stuck into their progression. Hey, go out to different spots, even maybe close to you, try out different boards. If you have opportunity, do one trip abroad. And this really, really, it's important if you want to, step up one level, in your performance.
You can reinvigorate the stoke and learn new things and feel some light bulb moments. I guess before we wrap up, do you want to tell us about some of your, beyond your camp in Portugal? You organize some trips across the globe, it sounds like.
Yeah, we started organizing paddle surfing retreats also in different locations. Similar setup, small groups, quality places to stay, accommodation and food, same principles. Now we are doing trips to Peru, to Chicama. Chicama is the longest left wave in the world. Yeah, we have
good for goofies.
Good for goofies. Or for regulars that want to improve their backside.
Backside's great too.
Don't get lazy.
Fair enough.
You got to work on your backside.
No, I love backside surfing, actually.
And also, we've been running trips to the Maldives. And next year, we are going to do our first paddle surfing trips to the Mentawai in Indonesia. Wow. Yeah, this is like a live-aboard trip for 11 nights, 12 days. And in the Mentawais, we're really excited about this trip. And again, it's just to gather a bunch of cool people that love subsurfing and just explore the world, explore different waves. And that's the goal.
That sounds amazing. I would love to do one of those trips one day.
For sure.
Anything else you wanted to share?
No, it was like super awesome to be here talking with you about our passion, paddle surfing. I wish you the best for your podcast and looking forward to hear more episodes.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Tiago. Really appreciate you coming on for this and sharing your stoke and your perspective on the whole subsurfing journey. So thanks a lot. Hopefully we'll see you again.
Thank you, Sean.
Obrigado, Tiago. And thank you to everyone for listening. Hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. Please visit supsurfsessions.com to learn more about the podcast, and you can find links to Tiago's subsurf camps and travel bookings there as well. To keep up to date, please follow me on Instagram or Facebook. We'll catch you all later.
Once you get to that ripping stance, that's where magic happens.
That's it. That's a wrap.
Okay, perfect.